In life, everyone has the freedom to make their own choices, even when it comes to something as small as naming a child. But what happens when a personal decision becomes the center of a family dispute? My sister and I happened to be pregnant at the same time, an interesting coincidence. She eagerly announced her baby boy's name early on, while I kept my baby girl's name a secret. But when she found out I had chosen the name Oceana, things spiraled out of control. What started as mild disapproval quickly turned into a full-blown campaign against my choice, with my sister rallying an entire group of moms on Facebook to support her stance. Am I truly in the wrong for standing by my decision? Or is this just a meaningless feud between two sisters? Pregnancy is a miraculous journey, bringing boundless joy and hopes for a new future. For my sister and me, this joy was even more special because we were both pregnant at the same time. My sister, 30 years old, already had a 3-year-old daughter and was now expecting a baby boy. As for me, at 24, I was preparing to welcome my first child, a baby girl. One would think that this would be a time of deep bonding between us, but reality turned out to be quite the opposite. From the very beginning, my sister was incredibly excited about her pregnancy. She announced her baby's gender early and quickly decided on a name for her son. In April, she shared the name with the entire family and made it clear that it was final, non-negotiable. Not only that, but she also encouraged everyone to use the name when preparing gifts or personalized items for the baby. Everyone respected and happily accepted her decision without question. In contrast, I had a different approach. My husband and I had chosen a special name for our daughter long ago, even before we were certain she was a girl. However, I didn't make the name public. Only those truly close to us knew it through private conversations. To me, a name wasn't just a label. It was a meaningful part of my child's journey, a carefully considered decision my husband and I had made together. But my sister wasn't pleased with my silence. One day, she directly asked me what I planned to name my daughter. I had no reason to keep it a secret, so I answered naturally, Oceana. The moment she heard it, her expression changed. It wasn't surprise or excitement. It was clear, unfiltered disapproval. She repeated the name as if trying to process it, then immediately asked if I had something against normal names like Elizabeth, Beatrice, or Margaret. I calmly told her that I had no problem with those names, but they simply didn't feel right for me and my husband. She didn't stop there. She went on to list a dozen more common names: Emily, Haley, Anna, Marie, almost as if she was trying to find a more reasonable alternative for me. But my decision was already firm. I told her to stop and emphasized that my daughter's name had been set in stone for a long time and would not change. What started as a simple conversation soon became the spark of a growing conflict. To my sister, Oceana was too different, too unconventional, and hard to accept. But to me, it was a name filled with deep meaning, reflecting my hopes and dreams for my daughter. Unfortunately, she didn't see it as a personal choice, but rather as a grave mistake, one that she believed could ruin my child's life. And from that moment on, our rift truly began. After that tense conversation, I thought my sister would let things go. Even though she didn't like the name Oceana, I believed she would respect my husband's and my decision, just as the whole family had respected the name she chose for her son. But I was wrong. Her opposition wasn't just personal discomfort. It became a mission she assigned to herself, a mission to correct my decision. She didn't see it as a personal choice or preference, but as a mistake that needed to be fixed. I realized this more clearly when she kept bringing up the topic in our conversations afterward. Every time we met, she would present a new list of better names for me to consider. At first, I tried to gently decline, reminding her that my husband and I had already chosen a name for our daughter, but she refused to accept that answer. You could name her Elizabeth. It's such a beautiful and meaningful name. What about Beatrice or Margaret? Those are classic names that everyone loves. Okay, if you don't like those, how about Emily, Haley, Anna, Marie? She went on and on as if I was just hesitant and needed a little more persuasion to realize that my chosen name was a mistake. At that point, I had run out of patience. I interrupted her. Can you stop? We chose our daughter's name before we even knew she was a girl, and it's not going to change. This is not a debate. She looked at me with disappointment, as if I were doing something terribly wrong and refusing to admit my mistake. But at that moment, I didn't realize that she wasn't going to stop there. I had no idea that she had taken this argument outside our family. She went to a Facebook group for mothers where she often exchanged parenting advice and posted a lengthy rant about how I had named my daughter Oceana. But instead of just expressing her personal opinion, she turned it into a full-blown campaign against the name I had chosen. In her post, she painted me as an irresponsible mother who was ruining her child's life just because of an unusual name. She wrote that I had rejected dozens of beautiful and meaningful names in favor of one that no one could understand, that my daughter would grow up to hate her name, be bullied for it, and envy other kids with more traditional names. And it didn't stop there. She even asked for help from other mothers in the group, encouraging them to give me advice on how to see reason and change my decision. Some agreed with her, leaving critical comments about my choice. One acquaintance in the group, realizing how far things had escalated, sent me screenshots of the post. I was genuinely shocked as I read what she had written. I couldn't believe that my own sister, the person I trusted and loved, had spent over a week keeping that post at the top of the group just to gather more people into this discussion. She didn't just share the story from her perspective. She twisted it to make me look like a stubborn mother who was putting her child in a difficult position simply because of a name. Seeing all of this, I realized that this was no longer just about personal preferences. This was about control. My sister didn't just dislike the name Oceana. She felt she had the right to decide my child's name, and when I refused to give in, she tried to use social pressure to force me to change it. But I am not someone who bends easily. No matter how hard she tries, the name Oceana will not change. But the story doesn't end here. After discovering my sister's post in a Facebook mom group, I was utterly shocked and deeply disappointed. I knew she didn't like the name Oceana, but I never expected her to go this far, turning a personal matter between us into a community battle and dragging strangers into it just to pressure me. She didn't just express her opinion. She deliberately portrayed me as a stubborn, thoughtless mother who was ruining my daughter's future. Her words were filled with criticism. I honestly don't understand why my sister wants to give her baby this name. It has no meaning at all and doesn't even sound like a human name. I tried to advise her, suggested better and more reasonable names, but she refuses to change her mind. Is there any way I can convince her? I'm genuinely worried about this poor child. She even rallied a few people in the group to agree with her. Some encouraged her to keep trying, while others strongly condemned my decision. I completely agree with you. Giving a child such a weird name is totally unfair to them. That name sounds ridiculous. I'd be shocked too if my sister named my niece something like that. Try talking to her husband. Maybe he doesn't like the name either and could convince her to change it. These comments made me both angry and heartbroken. I never asked anyone to accept my child's name. I never went around bad-mouthing my sister or forcing anyone to agree with my choice. So why was she doing this to me? Things got even worse when her post not only remained in the group, but stayed at the top for over a week. She kept commenting, kept asking for support, and continued persuading others that I was making a terrible decision. She even encouraged group members to share the story to get more opinions from other moms. When I saw the screenshots that a friend sent me, I felt a deep, piercing pain. This was no longer just her personal disapproval. It was a public humiliation. She had turned something as sacred as naming my own child into a cruel battle. I had to ask myself, was she really concerned about my child, or was she just trying to prove that she was right and I was wrong? Did she truly believe that the name Oceana would ruin my daughter's life? Or was she simply unable to accept that I didn't follow her advice? I thought long and hard about how to respond. Should I confront her directly? Should I write a counterpost to defend myself? Or should I just stay silent and let it go? But then I realized there was no reason for me to justify my decision. This name was for my daughter, and only my husband and I had the right to decide. In the end, I chose to face my sister. But this time, I wouldn't try to explain or persuade her anymore. I had come to understand that people who always want to control others will never stop, no matter how much reasoning you give them. and I was ready for the next confrontation. After finding out that my sister publicly shamed me on social media, I knew it was time to confront her directly. I was done letting her manipulate this argument and turn me into someone deserving of criticism. 3 weeks after her Facebook post spread across the group, I saw her at a family gathering. She acted as if nothing had happened, but I was certain she hadn't given up on trying to change my decision. And just as I expected, within minutes of our conversation, she pulled out a new list of names she considered acceptable for my daughter. Have you reconsidered? If you don't like Elizabeth or Beatrice, what about Rosemary, Vivienne, Francesca, or Lillian? If you want something a little more unique, I can help you find names that are still special, but not too strange, like Oceana. I just want what's best for her. Do you really want her to grow up with a name that everyone finds odd? I was exhausted. I looked at her, no longer trying to keep my composure. Can you stop? This is not your business. You should focus on your own son's name instead of trying to control my decision. She was taken aback for a moment, but her expression quickly shifted to one of hurt and frustration. Why are you talking to me like this? I'm only trying to help. I'm genuinely worried about your child. Have you thought about how the family will feel when they hear that name? Are you purposely choosing a name that everyone will hate? I took a deep breath and firmly replied, No one has the right to love or hate my child's name except me and my husband. You may not like it, but that doesn't mean I have to change it. She frowned, looking at me with disappointment. Don't you think you're being rude? I'm just trying to help you avoid a mistake. I let out a soft laugh. A mistake? Just because I didn't pick a name she liked? The only mistake here is you thinking you have the right to decide for me. You took this to Facebook, inviting strangers to criticize me. You're not helping me. You're trying to force me to do what you want. She opened her mouth to argue, but this time I didn't let her continue. You need to move on. This child is mine, not yours. And I don't care about your criticism or anyone else's. She was silent for a moment before abruptly standing up. You're so stubborn. I was just trying to help, but if you don't want to listen, fine. With that, she walked away, leaving me with a mix of relief and disappointment. I never wanted our relationship to turn sour, but I also couldn't let her keep manipulating my decisions. Maybe she thinks I'm being difficult. Maybe she still believes she's right. But one thing I know for sure, I don't need anyone's approval to name my daughter, and I won't let anyone change that. After the intense confrontation with my sister, I felt relieved that I had finally voiced everything I had been holding inside. But that relief didn't last long. As soon as she walked away, I started questioning myself. Was I really being too stubborn? Was I ruining my relationship with her over a name? Or was I doing the right thing by standing my ground? Even though I didn't want to admit it, her words haunted me. You're choosing a name that the whole family will hate. You're ruining your child's future. You're being rude by rejecting my advice. I didn't think I had done anything wrong, but being harshly criticized by my own family made me doubt myself. Was I really being too rigid? I confided in my husband about my thoughts. He held my hand tightly and said, You're not wrong. This is our child, and we have the right to name her as we wish. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. His words calmed me. I remembered why we had chosen the name Oceana in the first place. It wasn't just a beautiful name. It carried deep meaning for us. It symbolized vastness, freedom, strength, and life, everything we wished for our daughter. We had decided on this name a long time ago. It wasn't impulsive, it wasn't to impress anyone, it was simply a name we loved. But what hurt me the most wasn't my sister's disapproval. It was how she publicly shamed me on social media, dragging strangers into the situation and making me the target of criticism. If she truly cared about my child, she could have talked to me calmly instead of trying to force me to change my mind with harsh words and outside interference. So, should I apologize to her? I never insulted her. I simply defended my choice. But I knew my sister well. If I didn't take the first step to make peace, she would likely continue to hold a grudge and prolong this tension. After a few days of reflection, I decided to text her. I didn't apologize for standing my ground, but I wanted to make one thing clear. I understand that you only want the best for my child. But this is a decision my husband and I have made together. I'm not trying to go against you or the family. I'm simply choosing a name that we love. I hope you can respect that." She read my message but didn't respond right away. I figured she was still upset. But later that evening, she finally replied with a short, cold response. "Do whatever you want." No apology, no real acceptance, just a detached response. But I knew that at this point I didn't need to try any harder. My relationship with my sister may never be the same, but I accept that. Sometimes, to protect our own freedom, we have to be willing to sacrifice certain things, even the approval of others. And whether she agrees with it or not, my daughter will carry the name Oceana, a name chosen by my husband and me, with all the love in our hearts.